Welcome. What is up? Welcome to the Mixer. I'm your host, RC. I'm joined by my co-host here, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing good. We are post NFL season now, so time to turn our focus completely to F1. Not worry about baseball at all, and don't worry about basketball till the playoffs.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, we are the Mixer. Subscribe, like, rate, and review, all that good stuff. Follow us on social media at FC Wine Mixer everywhere. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening. So we're going to talk about the simulation today. Get a little more into simulation theory. We have an old episode on a different channel where we talked about simulation theory. I think I'm going to republish that on this feed and on our YouTube channel as well. So you can refer back to that. It is Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody. And it is post Super Bowl. Since it's kind of a nice transition because the NFL is clearly rigged, just like reality, possibly. We had the Chiefs beating the Eagles 38-35, not 37-34, like the screenshot from Pro Football Reference that somebody very, very cleverly went viral with regarding the NFL script writers. And last week we said, I mean, I can't remember your sentiment, but my sentiment was the Eagles are the better team, but the Chiefs had Patrick Mahomes. And then before the game, I said Eagles by 9. And I feel like all of it is justified. But,
Yeah,
I mean, Mahomes did what he does and won his second Super Bowl.
yeah. I mean, it all depends on how you look at it. The Eagles, probably. I mean, they were really good, but the Chiefs played, I guess, a more well-rounded game in a way, right? Like they had the defensive score, they almost had the punt return touchdown, um, and then in the second half, the Eagles just couldn't stop the Chiefs. The Chiefs, I think, had the ball 4 or 5 times and scored 4 or 5 touchdowns, whatever it was. I feel bad for Jalen because his fumble, if you kind of look at it, nothing else changes. That's a 7 point difference, right? That's potentially 35,
Minimum.
31.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, after he fumbled and they scored, they still were up 10 at half, right? So it's not like the fumble was, the be all end all type thing. So, I mean, overall, good game. Personally, I was kind of happy Mahomes won, but for my wallet, I was a little bit sad because it was about a $400 difference for us between, even though we had
Woo!
both teams winning the Super Bowl. Um, did have we did kind of want the Eagles just because it would have been a bigger return, but
Yeah, a little bit longer odds on the Eagles
yeah,
preseason, I suppose. Guess how much I netted? Oh, you saw. Did you see?
yeah,
Guess how much
it
I
was like,
netted? Okay.
wasn't it like $50 or something like that?
No, I bet $50 and
Oh,
I netted plus 56 cents. So, yeah.
that's what it was. I saw 50 somewhere. That makes sense.
Take the house. Take the house. Yeah, eat that shit, bookmaker. Yeah, that was hilarious. I put in all kinds of, well, I mean, I guess I didn't put in that much time, but yeah, I mean, I did listen to a few podcasts and yeah, probably about, I don't know, 3 hours worth of my time and netted 56 cents. So.
Nice.
Well, I saw somebody else, they entered like Showdown, the like DraftKings tourneys, and um I think they wagered like 25K or something and ended up winning
Yeah,
like $25,100. They netted
nice.
like $100. It's like, oh, I just spent like 80 hours researching and
Grinding
doing all this
this.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I won $100. AMA. All
Nice.
right. We got to talk about the holding at the end there when the Chiefs had the ball and the defensive back held. It was Juju, and they threw the flag. It was on 3rd and 8 or something, which was essentially 3rd and goal. There was like a little over a minute 30 left. I think it was like a minute 45. Eagles had 2 timeouts. If that were not called, in all likelihood, Kansas City kicks a field goal and go up by 3, which they ended up winning by. But there's more time on the clock for the Eagles. What are your thoughts on the call before I give my side?
Yeah, so I actually talked to a few people on Reddit about this. I think that the call by the letter of the law was correct. I don't think you can really argue that there wasn't a hold on the play. I think the argument that could be made is why, at that point in the game, is that the first one you call? Because I would imagine if we looked back at every receiver, every route during the game, this was not the first time that it happened. Also, something weird happened in the middle of the game where Fox, I don't know if they heard complaints online or something like that. They randomly just brought up Lane Johnson false starting on like almost every pass play the Eagles had and tried to explain it away as like, oh, him and Jason Kelsey are just like that in tune. But it's like very clear that he's taking a step early and none of those got called. Again, I don't really care about that. But it's weird that the referees kind of let everything go and then decide, oh, this is potentially one of the biggest plays in the game, but we're going to call it now, right? Like, that's my only issue is the consistency. Other than that, like the call seemed correct to me. Juju has a little hitch in his step. Does it really affect his route? I don't think so, but I mean, I don't think the referees were wrong in calling it. I just don't like that they hadn't called one all game and then decide to at the end.
And that's the take I've seen that is most prevalent in social media, at least the measured opinion. Uh, I feel like I mean the ref. So I'm not upset at the ref for making the call, if that makes any sense. But I mean you gotta be aware of the time in the game. It's inside the 2 minute warning, and like I mean he just yeah I don't know how you call that, because I mean if I'm in that situation, I'm a ref, I'm not calling anything unless it's freaking blatant, because I mean there's probably holding on every single play on the offensive line. um so yeah, I mean I don't suspect that there was anything nefarious or something like the ref had the Chiefs money line or anything like that.
Right.
um I just think it's the dumb ref not having a not having the wherewithal to like not make that call. It's weird because there was a lot of playoff games that I was watching, and I was just like, they're just letting these guys play,
Yeah.
and I do prefer that. Um, so yeah, it's just a real bummer because the game was amazing, and like as soon as that happened, I was like, well, the game's freaking over. Like that's how it's going to end on a 50-50 flag.
Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, that was the
Great.
part
I
that
felt
really sucked
robbed.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
felt
that.
yeah. I think that was more um the takeaway was that I felt gypped. Well, that's problematic. I felt yeah, robbed.
Yeah. I mean, that was the part of it that really sucked, right? Like, if that happens at the 5 minute mark, okay, like, it kind of sucks that that's the first one and the Chiefs are probably going to score, but like, it is what it is. The Eagles are still going to get the ball back with some time. When it
Mhm.
happened, it essentially ends the game, as you said, right? Like, I mean, yeah, the Eagles still had a chance, but it was very, very minimal.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I'm with you. It did feel like it robbed us, but I do want to say one thing about refereeing in general, um, before we move on, is that
Okay.
everyone wants to blame refs for everything these days, right? Like whether it's balls and strikes in baseball, or like that type of flag in football, or a ticky-tack foul in basketball. But I would bet that refereeing today is significantly better than it's ever been, because they have to be, right? Like, yeah, they're still going to miss calls, right? Just like your favorite athlete messes up on plays, right? Doesn't matter who they are. But like I was talking to my dad the other day, like in baseball, right? Baseball is an easy one because we have the electronic strike zone, but umpires today are like 95% or better at calling balls and strikes almost every game. Whereas if you were to take an umpire from the mid 90s when like Greg Maddux was pitching, I would bet 20% or more of the strikes that Greg Maddux got called were technically balls, right? And I'm not using that to pick on him, say that he's like not as good as he seemed because of that. Dude was amazing and he was taking advantage of the system in place, but like people are so quick to blame refs nowadays. Like refs are so much better than you think they are, and you only see them when there's something bad going on. So like, yes, they can make terrible calls, but like lay off
Mhm.
them a little bit.
Unless it's the Premier Leagues and they're judging offsides, because
Well, yeah,
I,
I
I
haven't
don't know
even
what the
seen
hell's
that
going
one.
on with that shit.
I haven't seen that one that you and Matt were talking about the other day, but that one seems bad.
It is so bad. It was so bad, and it's like the fourth time or something Arsenal's been on the wrong side of that, um, the
Yeah.
VAR ruling. I agree with you. Uh, for the most part, the sentiment that refereeing is better, because they have to, because there's so many eyes on it and high def cams and all this stuff. There is still an element though of the human element, the because it's not a lot of these calls are subjective, and I think
Right.
that the referees do let their emotions influence how they view things. And I mean, I've heard that, I mean, the main place where this debate comes up is balls and strikes, because that's something clearly that can be automated.
Right.
Um, then I mean, the Padres have a player like Juan Soto who uh, is I mean, is made, not his living, but one of his greatest features as a player is his plate discipline, and so he gets a lot of borderline calls that probably could be strikes, um, get called as a ball. They give Soto the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know where. I still don't know where I land on it. I would like to. I mean, I wish that we could just try things out. Like, I'm kind of overwhelmingly of the opinion that there may not be there. Like, there's no perfect answer. There's going to be pluses and minuses to every system, and let's just try one out and acknowledge, like, okay, we're gonna try this. It's not gonna be perfect. There's no perfect solution, but let's see how it goes and see which one is better. But I mean, then everybody says, oh, you're waffling, blah blah blah, and everybody's gonna bitch and complain, oh, the other way was better. And then they do it, and then other people are gonna be like, that way was better. It's like, okay, can we just be objective about it? Like, I don't know, can AI just read the sentiment of the overall, and say, well, people were 3% less pissed off with automated. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, that's not that much. So anyway,
Right.
but yeah, and I don't know, like, the whole emotion thing, we think of it just as a negative when the players get like that we like get jobbed, or the teams that we like get screwed on the other end. But there are, like I mentioned with Soto, who gets the benefit, and in that case you're like, yeah. um and I mean, I think, like, another example of it going the other way is with freaking Joey Bosa. I don't know what he did, I don't know if he said something to a referee's wife or kids or something, because
Yeah.
he gets roughing calls and personal foul or unsportsmanlike conduct calls like no other. And yeah, sometimes they are unsportsmanlike, but I mean, even the regular season and going years back, like they are looking to call stuff on him.
Yeah.
And I mean that kind of manifested in the playoff game and cost the Chargers the win. I'm not a Joey Bosa fan. I was a fan of him his rookie year when he's balling out, but he's an asshole. He's just a complete asshole. He's the highest paid player on the Chargers. Questionable family ties. So, um, but like, so if we were to move refs or automate certain things like that, you'd have guys that are at like not being punished for being an asshole. You know what I mean? Like I
Right.
feel like you you should kind of benefit from being a good guy, and I mean not like
Well,
freaking sucking the refs off, you know,
yeah.
but like having a good reputation. I think you should be given a little bit of leeway.
Well,
So,
I think a simple fix to a lot of the issues with refs between players is that only the team captain can talk to the ref, and if anyone else goes to, it's an automatic penalty. Like I just think
mhm.
that is a very simple way to fix things or fix a lot of things with refs. Then the players can go like complain on the sideline, right, or tell their team captain like, "Oh, hey, this is happening," right, and then the captain can go talk to the ref. But like, just limit those interactions. Like that, those interactions are what lead to a lot of issues, right? So just make it an automatic penalty, whether it's football, basketball, whatever, that if a non-captain speaks to the referee, or the non-designated player or whatever speaks to a ref, even if it's in a good way, it's an automatic, penalty. Like just
Mhm.
end it. Don't let those conversations happen. Then there's so much less of the like personal drama between players and refs, right?
Mhm. And that's how it's supposed to be in soccer, but
Right.
it never goes that way. They have the most, yeah, up in the ref's face of any sport. So yeah, and I think another part is if you come up with some sort of automation, then the games become more static. There's less variability between the games, and then the sport might get a little more boring, which nobody wants. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. We're going to be arguing about this and debating things like this forever. Like, how is Stephen A. going to have a job? We're going to lose. It would be bad for jobs. It'd be bad for jobs, and in this economy, you can't be making
Well,
decisions like that.
yeah, and the tough thing about automating refereeing is so many of the rules are not just black and white, right? Like
Mm.
or like they are, but we've gotten to a point where they're more
Like
gray.
offside.
Right. Or like holding for the offensive line, right? Like like offensive linemen, it's like if you grab the jersey, as long as your hands are in a certain spot, it's okay.
Mm.
But once your hands go somewhere else, then it's not okay.
Mm.
Right. And it's like, so there's a gray area to a lot of these rules that
Mm.
I would be tough to account for, to
By
automate, I believe.
robots.
Yeah. At least as we are currently.
I hear you. We're in agreement for the most part,
Yeah.
as we usually are. Speaking of automation, let's get into our real topic for the show after our 20-minute intro that we said we may or may not do. We are going to be talking about the simulation. Are we living? Is this a computer program? Am I a program? Are you a program? Or is everything around us a program? So we talked about this before, but before we get into that, I do want to acknowledge that this is mostly for our and your entertainment purposes, and it's coming from like a spot of privilege. I wouldn't say like, I mean, we're not like, I mean, we're probably middle class. That's fair to say. However, like middle class in the U.S. is probably in like the top 1 or top 5% compared to like living conditions for the rest of the world. So I just don't want to come off as some. Well, I mean, I am an a hole for the most part, but like I don't want to come off as like arrogant. And yeah, it might be fun to talk about. Oh yeah, it'd be nice if life were just a computer program. Like I have to friggin' fight for my food every day, or something like
Right.
that. Or I mean, there's god awful things going on in the world right now. There's huge earthquake in Turkey, like all kinds of refugees can't sleep inside their house because they're worried about it freaking collapsing on them. I mean, the conditions in Ukraine. I mean, it could go on and on and on. Oppressive regimes, like
The Ohio
I
city
get
that
it.
had to be evacuated because of a train derailment.
Yeah, yeah, acid rain. Um, so like, I mean, I haven't had an easy life, or at least I don't feel like it's been easy. But that's from my perspective, and so yeah, I just just want to acknowledge that like being able to speculate on this or postulate is yeah. I don't know exactly know what I'm trying to say, but I'm saying like probably most of the world doesn't care about this kind of stuff, and I'm aware, but I find it interesting, so we're gonna talk about it. And the other thing is, stuff like this, it can tend to be associated with some people that are facing mental health challenges, like if you're battling depression, you have PTSD, or any other mental health challenges. Seek help. There are some affordable resources out there, and you don't want to kind of get too deep into conspiracies and that sort of thing, because it can lead to some unhealthy life choices, especially in the mental health area. So, um, that being said, yeah, let's get into the fun stuff. I mean, it's an ongoing joke that we make about the simulation and people running things, like our buddy Sean. Um, but I mean, there are in on our previous episode we went through kind of the main talking points on evidence that this might be a computer program. So I'm gonna or some sort of simulated reality. So I'm gonna fly through that. The most popular one is probably the Mandela Effect. Uh, Basically, people remember like have vivid memories of Nelson Mandela being executed or something, but he was actually released from prison, um, and yeah, was living free. And so there's a base of the population who swears by it. There's some other examples like the Berenstain Bears, the children's book. Everybody remember, or a lot of people remember it as the Berenstein Bears, which is how I remember it, but maybe people just weren't paying attention. It was a common mistake. It's easier to say. Berenstein, I think, is a more common name, so that can be explained away. Uh, there's memories of people remembering a non-existent movie called Shazam with Sinbad as Genie or something like that. It never that movie doesn't exist. There's the Fruit of the Loom thing, which fucking trips me out. I remember the Fruit of the Loom label. It had a cornucopia, and they're like, no, it never had a cornucopia. It's like, bitch, you lie. I remember. I remember on my freaking underwear. You're telling me. So anyway, that's the Mandela effect. I mean, this is one of the more popular ones. So, Jeff, do you have any thoughts on that one? On the Mandela?
Yeah, so I have a few thoughts. So, my first thought really is that it's pretty well known that humans in general have terrible memories. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I have a feeling that the Mandela effect really comes from, like, to use the Berenstein Bears as an example, there's an easy way to pronounce it, as you said, or a more natural way, especially for us, like in America. And I have a
Mm-hmm.
feeling people pronounce it that way for so long that, you're probably not looking at the name most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
then when you go to remember it, you remember it the way you pronounced it. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times when we're learning how to spell, we spell phonetically, right? So how things sound. So I have a feeling people just got used to it, how it sounded, and forgot how it was actually spelled. That's my
Yeah.
theory on a lot of things, Mandela effect. People just have bad memories, but because they're big events, people's memories tend to do the same thing to them, if that makes sense. And
Mm-hmm.
then and you've probably seen this in friend groups that you have or like in school, when one person says something happened and then other people are like, oh, I don't fully remember, but that sounds plausible. Yeah, that happened. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people just kind of jump on it. That's my first thought. My
Like,
second thought is that if we are in a computer simulation, I've heard this before, is that computers in general have like memory caching. Sometimes they have to clear memory, things like that. The
mm,
Mandela effect could be a sign of something like that, where like they had to clear the memory or something to keep the simulation going. And when it rebooted or whatever, it changed some things slightly. And that's
mm,
why, like, some people remember it as one thing and others remember it as something else because
yeah.
of that type of thing. But those are really my two thoughts on the Mandela effect there.
Yeah, it'd be an example of bad code essentially
Yeah.
instead of bad neuron connections,
Yeah.
and us being able to remember. So yeah, that is the evidence part, or why it's been identified as a possible piece of evidence that this is some sort of simulated reality. Um, the other one, I mean, this is the one that is still the most compelling to me, is the electron double split experiment, and basically objects behave differently when they're viewed versus when they're static. So I mean, this could just be some scientific thing that we just don't understand. I mean, I've heard it explained as we emit photons from our eyes, and I'm like, whoa, that's freaking metal. But, but yeah, I don't know. And essentially, this would mean, or the reason why people point to this as a piece of evidence is it could be evidence that essentially, if it's like a data saving or a memory saving tactic, to where if something's not being viewed, then maybe it's like rendered in low res or something. So to save computing power. Obviously, if it is a simulation, there's some freaking space computer doing God knows what. We're explaining in our terms that we've been programmed with,
Right.
but it encompasses the idea of it. So to me, that is still like I don't know. It feels pretty compelling, but maybe we're just not to a point in humanity where we can explain it better or understand it. I mean, since that's another big, do you have any thoughts on that one? Did you go
Not a
for it?
whole lot. I feel like your thought there kind of encapsulates my thinking on it, is that it's probably something we just don't have the ability to understand at the moment. Like we've discovered
Mm-hmm.
it. We've discovered that this happens, but we're not in a position to understand why at this point.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Some of the other ones that we identified in that previous episode was missing aliens. Why has nobody visited here? I think what is that? That's like the Fermi's paradox or something like that. Some scientists that there's like a great filter. I've heard it explained that basically um, we can't evolve past a certain thing because if we did, we'd all kill each other. Okay, so that's why there's no aliens. But yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of ideas on that. Um, and there were some other ones that have like kind of scientific in basis, but I didn't do too much research on them then, and I didn't do research on them now. But supposedly, the University of Washington was able to embed a computer virus into physical DNA, so that could be a piece of evidence that our biology might be computer coding or some sort of raw computer coding. Way above my freaking participation master's degree program that I'm working towards. Where's the other one that's similar? So there's this theory by James Gates that, well, he claims that he's identified computer code in string theory, which is what quadratic or quantum physics. Yeah, quantum physics got there. And he said that the equations he sees in string theory resemble like error correcting codes. I'm gonna take him at his word, but I mean he's already like string theory is pretty crackpot as the scientists would say in what's that movie? What the bleep do we know?
Yeah.
Crackpot. So yeah, those are the like scientific evidence. Some of the other ones we identified, there's weird news. I mean, we're living at weird times, but I mean, I feel like every generation kind of lives through unprecedented times. I mean, there was World War One, there's World War Two. Before that, there was all kinds of plagues. There was the Industrial Revolution. There was the American Revolution. Like, I mean, all throughout, and there's all kinds of other shit that doesn't get written about in history books because it wasn't white people going through it. Probably. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's not a compelling piece of evidence for me, but it is like kind of interesting. We got climate change going on. Like, you know, maybe this is some simulation to try to find a solution to climate change. Like you put in whatever AI that we are sadly in this scenario, and you put them in these freaking fleshy evolved monkeys and see if they can figure it out. You know, it could be that, and then everything else is just a byproduct of like just letting us live in this freaking, what is that, MMO? What's the gameplay? Okay, yeah, got it. Other ones, real quick. Earth's location in the Goldilocks zone. Like this spot just happens to be good for life. So obviously we're gonna think like, oh, isn't that convenient? Well, yeah, it fucking is. Like we're alive.
Right.
Like some that's the weird things about things being convenient is that they are convenient. There's weird visual phenomenons, like weird city constructions, like stairs leading to nowhere. Again, not hugely compelling. This one's also dumb, and this is the last one from our previous thing. So sorry, I'm kind of rambling here. Was the blue dress versus the white dress? I mean, we're gonna kick it back where it's like, what was that, 2018, 2019? It was the biggest
Feels
piece of
forever ago.
yeah, the biggest issue on the internet was whether a dress was white or whether it was blue. And then there's the Yanni and Laurel audio glitch where some people apparently hear Laurel and other people hear Yanni, and then yeah, some people saw a white dress in a photo, other people saw a blue dress. I have no answer for that. If you see a blue dress and you hear Laurel, like, get checked. I don't know what for, but something's off because I hear and see something completely different, and I don't care how scientists explain it, but yeah, it could be bad code, essentially. I mean, all of this would be, or most of it would be bad code. So yeah, I mean, any thoughts on those ones that I rambled through before we present our new evidence or ideas?
I mean, not really. Like like the weird visual stuff. Like, I don't know. That shit just happens, right? As far as like the Goldilocks zone. We really only know of life on our planet. We don't know of life elsewhere. Going back to your aliens thing, and I, obviously, like based on life on our planet, yes, we got very lucky, with where we are and in terms of where we are to our sun and all that. But how do we know that there's not another galaxy, another solar system out there where a planet that's in like Jupiter's orbit has a whole bunch of life and it's just
Wow.
drastically different than anything we could think of at the moment. So that one's not super compelling to me just because like we don't have a whole lot of evidence that this is how life has to happen, right? We only know that on our planet and like kind of our solar system a little bit, but we don't really know that for everything, right? um
For sure.
so that's just really my thought on that. The rest of it, like the weird news, I mean, I don't know, like sure it's weird, but I'm sure every generation or every 100 years or so, as you said, like has weird shit happen, right? So that's not super compelling to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you there. And so that's going to transition us into our new piece of evidence or thoughts. And these are mostly kind of lighthearted. I mean, I haven't read or seen anything like scientific as far like any breakthrough. I mean, like our access to AI now and kind of the more prevalence of it is kind of spooky, and seeing where things might go, which we'll talk about. But anyway, I haven't seen any like big scientific things that would suggest one way or the other. I mean, getting us started off on a thrilling note here is Jeff. I don't know if you noticed it, but if you look at a map of the world, there's a lot of things that look like dicks just everywhere. And like we've all had that either urge or person in our class that goes and draws things in their textbooks. Like, how do we not know? Like, I mean, to me, like, if you look at freaking like the Norway, Finland, Sweden, I don't know what that is, a peninsula, dude, that is a cock and balls. Like, is a flaccid, girthy cock and balls with maybe two penis heads. And
Two.
it's just dripping all over the rest of Europe. Yeah, man. I mean, look at that thing. It'd make a freaking OnlyFans model blush. Tell me that's not a
Oh,
penis.
I mean,
If
I'm
you,
not going
if
to tell you it's not, but I mean, I don't know if that's proof of anything.
dude, it looks like cock and balls. Like it's just like, oh man, yeah, yeah. I, I mean, like if this isn't a simulation, how do you not put a dick on the map?
I mean,
And
yeah,
I think
you
there's
definitely
probably
have to
all kinds
scatter
of
them around.
I mean, whatever program this thing, they're probably like their junk probably looks different. So there's probably all like their junk maybe looks like Australia or something in Antarctica that looks similar. Like they got to have a sense of humor, our overlords. But yeah, I mean, and then there's Florida, a little less impressive, but I mean, it's the Florida of penis drawings. So yeah, and I mean, there's probably all kinds of bodies of water too, but yeah, I mean, just like looking at a map, it's just well, okay, I didn't consent to this. Um, so yeah, yeah, that is one piece of evidence that I'm like, okay, you don't have to be so obvious. Superior race or superior species controlling us.
Yeah.
Okay, so this other one that I have here is, I mean, I guess it kind of fall into one we mentioned before, about weird visual phenomenon like stores disappearing, weird city constructions. Is I mean, I don't know if how prevalent this is in other areas, but I've seen scuba shops just near no large bodies of water, and I'm like, why the hell? Like, how is this place in business? Is this just a freaking tax haven for something? Is scuba in in quotes? Like, is scuba some urban dictionary term? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, the main ones is there's one off the 215 in San Bernardino.
Okay.
Um, that's not, it's like right next to like the freaking clusterfuck of the Inland Empire construction freeway. It's a disaster. There's like rail lines going through there every single time. It's anyway, there's a scuba shop there that's on like the north side of the 215. And
Yeah.
then when I lived in Ohio, there was a scuba shop like downtown in this freaking beat up rust belt town that had aged way past its prime. There was a river, and I mean, that was the biggest body of water. But I mean, that equipment's expensive. I don't know how a place like that would stay in business when, yeah, I don't know where the hell you're diving.
Yeah.
Like, and like that water is freaking muddy, murky, and yeah. So I'm just like, okay, somebody, when they were adjusting their sliders for scuba shops, overdid it. There's only
Right.
so many scuba shops you could put along the coast, and it just freaking pre-filled, and it's like, all right, well, we'll just spread them out. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if you have any examples of shit like that you've seen, but yeah, I mean, if you're listening, just like look out for that, and I'd love to hear it. It's like, why, you know,
Why is
I
this
can't think of
business
another
here?
example. Yeah, yeah. Like, why are we selling hiking boots at Ocean Beach or something like that? I mean, that's not a great example, but you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't think I have any examples like that. As far as like shops that are noticeably out of uh, obvious places to be, right? I know. I'll tell you my biggest, thought for why or proof for why we're in a simulation is just the actual like laws of physics.
Mm,
So for anyone that's done any kind of like programming or like especially game programming, right? Um, or you could just do like any type of simulation programming. Is you generally have to set certain rules and certain boundaries, right? But then once you do that, you can kind of let it go, and people will take it and evolve it into whatever they can. They'll push the limits, whatever. And we see in our universe, you can only go as fast as the speed of light, right?
hmm
The universe itself is like our game field, right?
Yeah, our
Now we haven't
sandbox.
explored, yeah, like we haven't explored a whole lot of that, or really none of it, to be honest. Um, but we're still, I think we're in a stage where we're still figuring out the actual like rules of the game and like what we can
Hmm
do as a species. And that to me is just very, are the laws of physics seem very like video game-ish in a way.
hmm
Obviously not like outlandish, but like just like here's some set rules, now go figure out what you can do with it type thing.
Yeah, yeah. The limitations, or like you said, controls to
Yeah.
keep us in. I like that thought. But like you said, maybe we're just not understanding the science fully, which
Yep.
could also be another example of a control, like that we're only given so much computing power, mental capacity. It's impossible to know,
Yeah.
but it's fun to think about, I suppose. Um, another. kind of funny one. Jeff, I'm going to be a little vulnerable here.
Okay.
To you and to whoever else is listening. Do you know what a phantom poop is?
I don't, not off the top of my head. This term seems somewhat familiar, but
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard it before, but I'm missing it at the moment.
Yeah. So I mean, this happens to me semi regularly, like maybe once or twice a month, as I'm playing with whatever that is. Basically, you feel like you gotta go. You sit. You put in work. Get up. Examine how your diet's going. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
Like maybe it went down, you flush it, nothing. Wipe, nothing. It's like, what the fuck? I was here for like 5 to 10 minutes. It definitely felt like there was something substantial there, and there's nothing there. And so it just didn't render because I wasn't like looking at it. Am I not supposed to look at it? And which, like, I mean, is questionable. It is like weird, human tactic, but I think there is some like lizard brain science thing that anyway. Yeah, again, full disclosure, I apologize for not asking you for consent to talk about that first. But yeah, man, it's weird. I don't get it. Only thing I can think of is was because I wasn't supposed to look, and I'm like inferior programming that I'm working with here.
I mean, I've definitely had these happen, right? Where you sit
Yeah.
down and you think something's coming and nothing comes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not even that. Like, I mean, it like physically like go through the process, and there definitely should be something there, and there's nothing there. So yeah, maybe I'm just tuning out, reading freezing cold takes or something to pass the time. But yeah, I like to think that it's somebody sitting in a control room. Like, hey, watch this. I'm gonna fuck with them.
That would be pretty funny.
Yeah, it'd be something I'd do. Just like,
just like in the middle, you're doing some super serious job, and then you randomly see this like one little character about to take a dump, and you're like, oh, let me mess with this guy.
Yeah. Look at this friggin' flesh monkey, or watch him try to figure this out. Oh man. Yeah. I mean, another kind of lighthearted one. Doppelgangers. Like, are we just like? I mean, like, there's some genetics, obviously, but that's boring. But like, is that lazy coding? Because I mean, I see people that are like dead ringers, and they're opposite sides of the world, opposite nationalities. Me and Pete Davidson, for instance, which I'm not proud of, but I am kind of proud of because I feel like I got a shot with like the tippity top of the yeah. It gives me hope that I just have to be massively talented and hilarious, and I too can have shallow relationships with other famous people.
There you go. I actually think DNA is one of those things. Like I was getting to with physics, is like DNA is a specific coding, right? And it almost looks like somebody, wrote up plans and said, okay, here's all the possible variants, and then with each person, it's like random, but sort of based on the two parent DNA, right? Like it's like, okay, here's your possibilities based on these, and boom, out you come. So it doesn't surprise me that there's very similar people in the world, looks wise.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, there's going to be a lot of
also another tick for a simulation, right? Like that's something I could see somebody coding like, oh, we want people and we need to make them, right? So this is the template we're gonna use, and then boom, just let them free.
Yeah, I am like a template. What would my number be? 3? I feel like my template's further down the list, but yeah. But yeah, you have like, I mean, even if you have like 10,000 templates, there are going to be some repeats.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel you there. Yeah, and I mean, while you're talking about DNA, um, the fact that I mean, again, no research done on this. If you want something that's heavily researched, this is not the pod for you. Go listen to a boring one. I'm sure you'll learn plenty and retain none of it. Um, is that, I mean, supposedly you're able to like pass down, like your DNA is supposed to like be able to adjust faster. Like, I mean, my like basically what I'm going on through now, if I were to like have a child, there would be some biological traits based on like what I'm experiencing now or what I've learned, and that's going to be like part of their nature,
Yeah.
regardless. Like having not experienced it, they're going to be, you know, uh, more prone to root for teams that continually come up short. They're just right there. Like, I mean, I wonder how many third places Arya's going to get. Like, I worry about having passed down that to her. Um, and I mean, there is some evidence that like mental health issues and stuff can get passed down, and yeah, that kind of adaptability. I mean, maybe it's a feature of evolution, a feature of our species. It's seen in other species too, or maybe it's like a self improving code.
Yeah.
No way of knowing, but it's interesting that it kind of behaves like a computer program.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
I don't
to
know if
kind of hold on, to piggyback on that, I don't know how many people pay attention to the world of games in general. I'm not talking, well, sort of video games because they've done it with StarCraft, but like chess or the game Go, um, where these computer programs are significantly better than the best human players in the world now. And when you look at how the computer programs learn, they learn a lot of times through a neural network, but playing themselves, right? A lot of
mm,
times these programmers will, all the computers know at the beginning is the rules of the game. And then they go and play millions upon millions of games against itself to determine strategy, right? And like how to play. And then, for example, chess, the best player in the world is Magnus Carlsen, and he has an ELO rating of like 2850 right now, something like that. And the best computers in the world have an ELO rating of like 35, 3600. Now, an ELO difference of about 400 points in chess, the way it's currently calculated, is like a 99% win probability.
mm-hmm,
So to be like that much better basically means that the best human in the world has no chance against a computer, right? So I bring this up because another species that created us as a simulation could essentially be doing that, right? Like we could be a self-learning organism
mm-hmm,
that each individual person is a different node in that neural network learning on its own, right? And the only thing that we were given at the beginning is like your goal in life is to survive and reproduce, basically,
mm-hmm,
right? And then we've gotten to this point and we've evolved, we've created like different technology and stuff, but like we could as a group be learning the same way as those computers learn those games.
mm-hmm.
Right. Now, the
Yeah.
purpose of that would be up to, like, I don't think we would really know the purpose of that, but I find those similarities interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. That's fascinating stuff and kind of reflective of my understanding or postulating on the topic. Um, I just got a few more additional pieces of evidence in there, maybe less compelling, but I feel that like life in general has some sort of difficulty adjustment, because I don't know about you, but like from my experience, I've never been like totally comfortable, and maybe that's I don't know, maybe that's just the nature of humanity. Like we're never satisfied. But yeah, anytime that I feel like I'm getting to a spot where it's like, all right, time to like put the feet up and go on freaking go on cruise control, and maybe go fishing, like get a get a hobby. It's like, nope, here's this life thing. Like, I mean, I finally felt like I was getting on top of my finances, and then it's like, oh, you need another root canal, or you might need a freaking you might need a dental surgery. Which, I mean, I apologize if I sound weird on this episode or the last one, but I have this like temporary crown that is like double the size of my other tooth. Yeah, and I've gone to TJ like 3 times to get it fixed because I can afford it there. And I have to go back again this weekend. But yeah, anywho, there's just always like little things like that. And I can think of a few times in my life where I was like, damn, this is like, I'm set, and then something happens. Divorce 1, divorce 2. The freaking collapse of the economy in 2008. And then like SDSU, sorry, we're not taking transfers. It's like, fuck, now I got to go to like some online degree place. So it just, again, that's totally biased, totally privileged, and maybe a feature of humanity, but like maybe it's something to keep us interested in participating in whatever this is.
Yeah, I actually would fully believe that this is a feature and not a bug.
Right.
That people have this. So like, you always hear this with people that are like, that a lot of people view as successful or whatever. And, this varies person to person and what your goal is for yourself. Really, like, people at the end of the day just want to be happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's what makes that happiness. And a lot of people, I would say for a majority of people that I know, and so I would assume for a majority of people, even though I don't know a majority of people, that accomplishing things ultimately is what makes them happy. Whether that be like doing something personally, doing something career-wise, having a
trying
child.
to win your 8th Super Bowl when you could die on the field.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a feature to keep people progressing more than just stagnating.
Right. Or it's just humanity. That's what drives us, to keep us evolving, to keep us pushing. Like, you can't really have one without the other. So, again, we're not drawing any conclusions. It's interesting to think about. So yeah, I'm with you there. I can't remember if I mentioned it at the start, but I would say like that's almost like Mario Kart coding, because in Mario Kart, like the people in the back get the better droppables, and they get their speed boosted, and then when you're in the front, you're getting slowed down. You're getting fucking banana peels or green shells. Bullshit. So yeah, that's how I explain it in my brain. Okay, this is a personal peeve. I keep looking around, especially in public, but even with people a little closer. I wouldn't say inner circle. I mean, this seems like an asshole take, but I feel like some people just aren't like sentient. Like I feel like they're basic bot boys and girls, essentially. Like, and there's no more evidence of this than people in retail stores that do not understand spatial awareness, and people on the road. Maybe that's just the way people are. They don't pay attention. They're on their phones. They're distracted. I mean, I probably do that shit too, and not even realizing it, because like I'm not an outside viewer of my behavior. But yeah, it's like sometimes I'm just like, turn, pick the fucking white eggs. You're standing in front of the white eggs. There's no other eggs. You either want eggs, which everybody needs fucking eggs, especially in this economy, Like, just grab a package, put it in your cart, move on. I want that
So,
brand. Get out of the way. Like, now you're putting me in a
so
spot where I have to be the asshole and say, hey, pay attention. Can you move? Do you mind? How do you say that either without either sounding like super, I don't know, passive, low T? Ma'am, could I trouble you to
I mean,
to
that's what you do. You say, "Excuse
make
me,
your
can
fucking decision?
I don't even ask them to make a decision. I say, "Excuse me, can I grab some eggs?" Like, that's all.
Yeah, I do that. I get impatient though, and I like say it as I'm reaching over them and kind of pushing them out of the way and face
Yeah.
palming their child. Like,
So I actually have a story that's very like related to this point. So I interviewed a few weeks ago with a company, and they do their interviews where it's like a 2 hour block and you meet with three people on the team or something, but you meet with them individually. So you get like 45 minutes with one, like half an hour with another, and like 45 minutes with the last one. Right. And after that interview, I said to my wife, and I said, I feel like one of those people was an NPC. And she was, her first response was like, "What's an NPC?" Right? She enjoys video games, but she's not like that into them, so she doesn't like know some of the
yeah.
like slang, I guess. But so for people that don't know, an NPC is a non-playable character, right? So it's like those
Mm.
people that give you quests and stuff like that. But yeah, he like I'm in this interview and it just felt so like surreal to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was just like, there's no way this is a real person, right? And it was
Yes.
just like,
Yes.
yeah. So I also to go along with this though, and I think that um this helps me stay fairly happy. Just imagine everyone in the world is an NPC except for yourself in
Mm.
your video game, whatever game you want it to be. And it just makes life so much easier because then like you don't have to assign, like when people are mean to you or like they're dicks or even if they're super nice, like you don't have to
Yeah.
assign like any meaning to any of that, right? Because you're just like, oh, that's a rando, right? Like that's
Yeah.
just whatever.
Yeah.
And it just makes things a lot easier.
I'm gonna try that. That's great. I like that.
Like it's
I
tough
like
though,
that.
because then like like I wouldn't say like think about everyone in that way, right? Like your close
Mm.
friends and stuff like that. Like I wouldn't say like
Yeah.
think they're NPCs, but random people you meet, people at work, they're just living their own life, they're doing their own
Yeah.
thing, and that's on them.
Yeah. And don't be a freaking sociopath that fucks with the NPCs just to see what would happen. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, don't be one of
Um,
those freaking gamers,
I do have a
simulators.
thought that, and this is more of a, well, I don't know. You could think of this however you want. I had this thought back when I was having to do like religion classes all the time, right? Like growing
Mm.
up in a family, I had to go to CCD, I had to make my confirmation, first confession, all that stuff, right? Like I've done everything in the Catholic Church, except die. But
Have you been? Well,
um,
okay, I'm not gonna make a dark joke that I should or that I want to, but yeah,
okay, I
continue.
haven't.
Continue.
No, I haven't done that one. I know where you're going with that.
Okay.
Um, but I had this thought a long time ago because Catholics especially, I think Christians in general always talk about this like God's will, right? Like, or if God wants it, it'll happen type thing, right? Like God, right? He has this all
Mm.
control. But like you never see it, right? Like you never see his control. Like you never see him do anything, whatever, like that. So I don't know when I had this thought. I remember I was fairly young and I was like, you know what? What if there's this other universe, like this higher dimension,
Mm.
and who we think of as God created
Mm-hmm.
us, right? As some like sixth grade science project and was
Geppetto with
like,
Pinocchio.
yeah, and just like created us and then threw us to the side. And he's
Uh-huh.
not around anymore, but like we have some knowledge of him because like he stayed around to make sure things went right. But then just
Yeah.
like was like, I'm done with that. Put us to the
Yeah,
side.
that
I've
was
always
practice.
wondered about something like that. And
Yeah,
so like, yeah.
I feel you there. That was going to be one of my like final points or final takeaways is I mean, it's interesting that you had that thought. Do you know about how old you were when you
I would imagine, because I've always associated it with like the like science stuff that you have to do in middle
Mhm.
school. So like sixth, seventh, eighth grade. I would imagine I was around that age. So what is that, like 11, 12, 13, 14, something like that?
Yeah.
Um, I would imagine I was about there.
So I distinctly remember as a child, and I know it was before I was 5, because I remember having the thought in the house that I lived in prior to where I unfortunately call home now. Well, not unfortunately, but I mean the rent's too damn high here in San Diego, so like I live with my dad at my life situation, whatever. Nobody cares. But yeah, at my grandma's house where I used to live, yeah, I remember having this thought. I was like playing in the playroom, and like, I mean, you do like make believe, pretend, or whatever. Like I used to like playing with race cars. Shocker.
Mhm.
And I'd be like, thinking about all these things. I'd be like, yeah, and then they go, and then they, crash and shit. And then like I remember having a thought, like, wait, like I am the freaking overlord of these little like objects. Like, and
Yeah.
then I just had this visualization of like me as a child, and then having like somebody slightly bigger, like with their hand on me, like controlling me, and then like bigger and bigger, 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 like a freaking
Right.
Russian doll thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember the visualization in my head was like the kid that's on the cover of the freaking American out. Wait, what is it? Americana, the Offspring album, where isn't
Okay.
he like on a swing set with a roach like that? That's what I visualized in my head, and I've just always like kind of had that thought, and that's. I mean, maybe it's just like part of our biology to imagine shit like that. Maybe this whole conversation is just a feature, not a bug of us. But yeah, I do find it interesting that like we are even like we can envision something like this. I mean, that's what we're doing, and we're saying like, oh well, if this is what's going on, like here are some examples, and here's why it's evidence. And I can't remember again the scientific thing, um, principle, theory, whatever. But basically, if it's something that you can like theorize or envision, then it is like reality in some way. And then there's the whole like things about like multiple universes and like all that shit that supposedly there's like evidence for. Like I don't know how to make any sense of that and how we fit in to that. So yeah, maybe it's just like some super species and we're just the science project, the third grade science project or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I will say real quick that if we are in a simulation, I think it almost confirms that there are multiple universes as well.
yeah.
Because if you know anything about people who run simulations, you never just run one,
Mhm.
right? Or your simulation is never just like one self contained universe. To use a recent example, people that simulate the Super Bowl, right? Or that try to simulate for player props, right? Like how many passing yards is Patrick Mahomes going to have, right? They'll take information from both teams, a lot of different variables, and run it. And they'll run it thousands of times. I
Mhm.
imagine if we are a simulation, we are just one of those thousands of runs, right? That
Yeah.
some higher dimension, higher species is doing to figure out they're trying to solve whatever problem they have, and we are the
Right.
way to do it, right? So,
Yeah.
and we just happen to be one of those mini runs, which means that there's many other universes
Yeah.
and all that. So,
Yeah. And as technology gets more prevalent, you're probably going to like it's probably going to be more of a common topic in the years to come. There may be some like freaking zealot groups that form that freaking worship the Matrix rain, the code rain thing. Like that'll be
Yeah.
there, and it won't be static. It'll be 3D, NFT, an immersive metaverse experience. Um, so yeah, I think it is like, I don't know, as technology becomes more prevalent, especially AI and that sort of thing. And I mean, one thing I forgot to mention was, I'm an OpenAI addict, as we mentioned last episode. I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that making the rounds, like artificially intelligent artworks. And somebody asked, like, some AI thing, I don't know which one it was. There's tons of them, to project like the future evolution of humans, and it's like the time lapse is like eventually we like become mechanized, like mechanical limbs and
Hmm.
organs and stuff, and like that makes sense in sci-fi because like our organic uh organs and limbs and stuff, they um you know deteriorate over time. Maybe that metals and shit like that has a longer time period of, and it can extend our life, which we probably are moving towards in the somewhat nearish future. But then like eventually the machines just become more like static, less moving, and then it just becomes like piping, essentially, like
Yeah.
freaking bandwidth. Like you're just like this metal, you essentially turn into code traveling through
Yeah.
wires. Is how the AI um, artist uh, envisioned it, which I thought was interesting. It's like, fuck, man. Like, however, that could just be a product of our biology. We created the fucking AI. Like, you know what I mean? It's based on what
Yeah.
we know, and so like, oh well, tech is just going to keep getting better and better and better until it either goes away completely because we all kill each other, or we're living in a computer. I mean, that does make sense to me. The Black Mirror series touched on it. San Junipero, which is like eternity for people. They get uploaded when they die. That was interesting. And there's one about a dating app, which kind of relates to what you were saying. Like maybe this is just an environment where a problem is trying to be solved. And in that case, it was a dating thing. And yeah, that was really interesting. I mean, I have some like closing thoughts. I'm not sure how, if you're super tight on time or anything, Jeff. If you have
No,
any
go for
closing
it.
thoughts. So like I didn't. I mean, I'm working off bullet points here, so apologies if it's repetitive from what I already said. But I mean, like I think people will probably want a conclusion, or like our position. I mean, like, gun in my head, I don't know. I don't think there's any way to know. I don't think we're meant to know. Um, if this is, I don't know if I like strongly believe one way or another. I think I'm kind of opinion. It doesn't matter. If you know what I mean. Like if you get too far into it, you believe this sort of thing, then like how are you living out your life? You're just like, you want to throw down your controller. Like I don't know. I just don't see like the purpose in getting into like trying to speculate on whether or not something like this is true. And I kind of feel that way with like religion too. And I mean, I think I mentioned in the last one, but human beings, we tend to put, or if like history, if we can rely on history, we tend to put like like the we embody like a deity to like the greatest scientific advancement we know of the time. Like for a long time ago, it was like the sun. We have all kinds of religions and civilizations that like worship the sun, which
Right.
I mean it does like the sun pretty fucking important, but that was like the thing that they could understand to and point to like, oh, that's freaking magic, right? Like I
Yeah.
don't know how that works, but it when the sun goes away, like all these plants die and shit, and then when the sun's out, they all like live and thrive. Well, fuck, like we better treat that guy good. Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, you see it with like animals and such, um, and then you know we people who like organize cultures, with civilization and freaking build roads, infrastructure. Like we
Yeah.
worship the infrastructure people that were able to do fucking deals like on a Succession. Back then, that's why you like worship the kings and queens in or pharaohs in Egypt and other civilizations. Like Caesar was
Yeah.
revered in Asian cultures too. Like the great conquerors, they were revered, um, and then we started worshiping. I mean, this might sound belittling, but like street musicians, like I don't know how. Like, how did Jesus freaking walk on water? Like, or
Right.
how did he? And I mean, I'm not, like I'm not denouncing Christianity or any of our other major religions, but like once like kind of modern civilization was established, and we no longer had to like worship the sun or worship um, the great leaders of the civilizations, we began to ascribe importance or deities to things that we like their readings or like literature we could connect with, or like street magician tricks, like shit we didn't understand because that's fucking magic. And now maybe we're doing the same thing with computers. Like I mean, I plugged something into OpenAI, and like I have a lot of thoughts in my head, and I was like, how do I put this into writing? It's like this
Yeah.
task that takes hours, and you like throw a few ideas on there, give it a simple instruction, and it can produce like 500 words or something on an idea that you kind of have, but can't like space out and like expand upon. And it's just like, here you go. It's like, yeah, okay, like that's pretty much what I was like, the main aspect of what I was trying to think. And then you can
Yeah.
like adjust it as needed. And so anyway, like I don't see that it's like thinking about the simulation is that it's similar to like our understanding of religion, where there's some higher power that put us here for some reason that we don't know. And we spend a lot of time thinking about it, a lot of time when we're not busy doing the other shit that is probably what we're actually supposed to be doing to create a solution to global warming. To, I mean, I kind of have this thought that, if we do advance into like utopia, right? That's the goal, right? Is to
Yeah.
just like have everything taken care of. Everything's fucking peace and harmony. We're all doing mushrooms, smoking weed, drinking beer. Our teams win every time, or at least like the teams everybody wants to wins. I don't know. Like that would get fucking so boring.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's what life is. It's about like failing and getting up and fucking pushing through shit, like grinding. Uh, that's what makes it great, because then you get that freaking hit of dopamine when you accomplish a task. It lasts for a week, and then you're fucking right back to grinding the next challenge. And yeah, it doesn't matter what level you're at. I mean, Tom Brady won freaking 7 Super Bowls. He went to another team and did it over 40 with a different coach. He had a freaking supermodel wife that was loaded, and he's like, no, I want to freaking chill in the Bahamas with SBF, Sam Brakeman-Fried, and Play Nate season, where anytime a D line gets near me, I could die. Like, I could break a hip, like literally. And then like, I mean, he's got a supermodel wife, and he's has all these accomplishments, and he's getting like plastic surgery done. It's like, bro, like you made it, dude. Like, you made it. Just fucking chill.
Yeah.
Like, start a weird hobby, like get into drones or something. Like, you have all kinds of money. Like, let me tell you about F1. Like, why? Like, try to hook up with Andretti. You know, like you could be a freaking team principal of yeah, just be a freaking mascot for Andretti and travel the world. Like, so yeah. And I just think if like we ever do get to that point, we're gonna be leaving that shit to come in something like this and live, because like perfection is boring. So, but all that said, we could just be freaking upjumped monkeys, trying to get to a point where we don't all kill each other. This is the stuff I think about, man. I don't know how much other people think of this, but it has ran through my head quite often. And I'm sober right now. I wanted to kind of do like microdose and edible, which I hear is not a thing, by the way. So, but yeah, that dad life gotta pod responsibly.
Yeah. Exactly.
Do you have any final thoughts, Jeff?
I mean, my final thoughts are pretty like short. I think that it's a fun thought experiment to think about, right? Like I think about this with religion too. They're fun to think about. I think for the average person day to day, it's probably worthless overall for most of your life, because what effect is it really going to have unless someone happens to prove it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, it's fun. It's fun to talk about with friends. It's fun to think about for me. But I think most people should probably just ignore it and continue doing whatever they're doing.
Oh yeah, for sure. You can't let this, yeah, it's not healthy to live your life based around that, like as the fundamental truth, you know. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, life is freaking a challenge. It's always going to be. Like I said, that's what makes it interesting. But like, I mean, sometimes with my daughter, like, I mean, I've had it happen, you know, even though like I'm kind of going through this weird like co-parent thing, and there's you know, there's been 2 divorces in my life, and like living at home with my parents, but like, or dad. You know, sometimes I'm just like sitting with her in her room, and I'm just like I can't imagine it getting any better. Like, just watching her fucking play with Legos, and like seeing her advance and learn to talk. And last night she asked me why 8 times in a row, and I'm like, oh god, we are here. And I've always been like, because my mom told me I was a why kid, and I was like, dude, you're just lazy. You just don't want to answer. Like, I deserve answers. You're supposed to know this shit. You're like, impart that shit on me. Yeah, after like the 5th why, I was like, oh god, I'm regretting that take. But I answered every single one and got to the end. It mostly circled back to because you're sick and you need to get better.
Right.
So yeah, hit me up for dad advice. All right. I think I already asked you if you have anything else before you get out, but yeah, unless you got any final thoughts, I think it's time.
I do not.
That was fun.
It was.
Ferrari launch today. Yeah. Feeling cute. Might DNF later. God, I hope this season's good. I think it will be. Thank you for listening. Again, we are The Mixer. Rate and review. We may be dropping a new channel soon, a new feed, so keep on the lookout for that. But for Jeff, from me, from The Mixer, Thank you for listening to the Loop.